and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, How to Use LinkedIn to Grow Your Business. I'm Amber Noble, a marketing specialist at Barracuda MSP, and I'm happy to be moderating today's session. Today, I'm joined by Angela Levitt, founder of Mojo Marketing. Through her years of experience, Angela has become an accomplished entrepreneur and speaker, solidifying a name for herself in the telecom and IT industry. During today's educational webinar, Angela will take us through her best tips and tricks on utilizing LinkedIn to grow your business to its max potential. Before we get started, let's do some brief housekeeping. During the webinar, if you have any questions, feel free to share them using the questions or chat panels to the right of the Zoom webinar screen. At the conclusion of the webinar, you will be prompted to complete a brief polling survey. Please take a moment to tell us what you think so that we can continually improve the content and quality of our online events. Now, without further ado, I'd like to hand it over to Angela to begin today's presentation. Take it away, Angela.
Thank you, Amber. Really happy to be back with you guys at Barracuda. We've collaborated on lots of presentations like this in the past, and you guys have a great group, and so thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to share this information with you guys. This has been a really hot topic lately. It's something I'm talking about at conferences and webinars, in a lot of the phone calls that I have. People are really realizing that LinkedIn has a huge power to impact your business. And what I've done is kind of boiled it down into a formula that can be accomplished in just 15 minutes at a time, or ideally 15 minutes a day. So I'm excited to share that with you guys. So before I get into it, I just wanted to share with you a little bit of a case study. As I mentioned, I've been doing this training quite a bit. And this was from a provider that we work with and had us do a training for their team. So we trained their channel managers, and a few days after we did the training, this was an email I got from the head of their channel. He said that one of the channel managers on their team was not previously a big user of LinkedIn, but he took a prospect list that they had generated, he vetted it out, he segmented it. He did some of the things that we shared with them, sent out 75 invites, 17 accepted within a couple of days, 4 appointments were scheduled, and according to him, 2 conversions thus far. So, you know, your mileage will vary on these types of things, but I just want to share with you that these things can have major impact and immediate impact if it's something that you really grasp onto. So some interesting stats to start. This one came directly from LinkedIn, that salespeople who regularly share quality content are 45% more likely to exceed quota. I would emphasize here the idea of quality content, and we're going to talk a little bit later about what that looks like. But gosh, I mean, I've been in sales and marketing my entire career, and if someone would have come to me earlier when I was primarily more focused on sales and said, hey, I've got this one tip, and if you do this one thing, you're 45% more likely to exceed quota, I know my ears would have perked up quite substantially. And so this is a really simple thing that you can do to really boost your odds. And as I mentioned just a minute ago, really all you need is about 15 minutes a day. And so I'm going to show you what that looks like. There's a huge opportunity on LinkedIn, as you are well aware. These are just some of the most recent stats, 146 million users in the US. One thing I thought was super interesting is that the most represented industry on LinkedIn is information technology. So our industry is alive and well on LinkedIn. You can see some of these other stats there. Many companies are using this tool to acquire companies, refer visitors to their website, and a whole bunch of other great stuff. There's all kinds of things that you can use LinkedIn to do. You may be aware that, you know, sales and marketing have changed, right? It's no longer about, you know, quick sprints and, you know, gimmicky sort of, hey, I'm just going to buy a list and send them a spammy email and my phone's going to ring off the hook. That's not the way it works anymore. It's a slower process. It's a more involved process. And a lot of companies who are very successful are there because they have a long-term strategy in mind, and they are building thought leadership. They're building a tribe. They're becoming the go-to person or the go-to company for whatever it is that they are expert at. And so LinkedIn is an excellent tool to help you do that, to build awareness of you, your brand, your thought leadership. You absolutely can generate leads. This is an excellent way to multiply yourself. You know, some of the posts that I put onto my LinkedIn, looking at the stats of them, have been seen by 2,000 people. Now, that might not seem like a whole lot when you think of how many millions of people are on LinkedIn, but for me to spend money to get in front of 2,000 people, whether it be through advertising or through speaking at an event or something like that, is pretty high. So, you know, an excellent way to do something once and have it seen by hundreds or sometimes thousands of people. It's a great way to stay current. I know that for myself, LinkedIn has become my primary source of industry news. It's the way I keep up on, you know, what's happening in telecom and IT. It's a great way to nurture relationships, to stay in front of people that you've met, and to differentiate yourself. I know that most of you on the call are probably, you know, owners of your own, you know, sort of MSP or, you know, or a partner of some sort. But if you're an employee at a company, or if you ever want to become an employee at a company, using your own social media and your own social tribe, or, you know, showing that you are developing your influence through social media can be an excellent negotiating tool for, you know, for that next job or that raise coming up or whatever, and a way to differentiate yourself not only from people within your company, but from your competition. So again, you know, super powerful tool. Why does LinkedIn work, or why does social media work in the first place? Well, it's fast. You know, we're seeing things that people just posted today. As I mentioned, it's inexpensive. One of my really good friends is actually very, very popular on LinkedIn, and he frequently will show me the stats that he's getting. You know, he'll post something, and his things will sometimes get 20,000, 30,000 views. And he'll say to me, Angela, I used to have to spend thousands of dollars to get this kind of exposure. And I don't have to anymore. I don't have to spend a dime on advertising anymore, because I can now do it through this tool, and it's so inexpensive. Obviously, like, no travel is required to connect with people. You can, by staying in front of them, you're staying top of mind. Earlier this year, my own company, we launched a weekly video that we post on Fridays, and it goes up. We do a little news recap of the industry, and we include a marketing tip. We've put it on pause the last couple of months, but we're going to, for summer, but we're going to vamp it right back up starting tomorrow. But this video, just consistently posting it, was generating all kinds of activity for us, right? People would just see it. They would be reminded, oh yeah, you know, I've been wanting to reach out. I've been wanting to talk to you. So it's an excellent way to do that. Obviously, as I mentioned, low cost of generating leads. I'm going to show you how to do that, and easy to, you know, create groups and communities or get involved in those that are already there. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that too. So the first thing we're going to get into is, you know, a little bit higher level. We're going to look at the strategy that you want to use when you are approaching your LinkedIn, and then we're going to get tactical and really dive into like exactly what to do and what not to do. Because as you guys know, if we go right into the tactics without talking about the strategy, then we're missing an important component. So your strategy really has 6 steps, and I'm going to talk about each of these individually. But first, we're going to define who your persona is, and as well as your audience persona. We're going to look at discovering your audience's pain. we're going to find them online, then we're going to offer solutions, and we're going to do this regularly. We're going to engage, and we're going to talk about what that engagement looks like. And then, as I mentioned earlier, like just consistency, patience. We're no longer in a sprinting world. We're in a marathon world. So those who are consistent and who engage regularly and are patient are those who are reaping the most benefits from tools like this. Okay, so step one here is to define yourself. And this is a mistake that I see made by people quite frequently, where there just seems to be a disconnect, maybe a disconnect between what they're posting online versus how they are in real life, or a disconnect in the types of posts they're putting up. Like, maybe one is like wacky and crazy one day, and the next one is like a research report. And so I think it's important to just take a moment and think about, how do you want to come across, right? And how do you want to be perceived? What do you want to be known for? And what is your voice? The most important advice I can give you here is to be authentic to yourself. You can certainly dial up a certain part of you or your personality, or dial a certain part down. But the key here is to be consistent. And this is true for any kind of brand building that you're doing. One of the definitions of a brand is just a consistent experience. And so think about that, like your LinkedIn is your personal brand. So give people a consistent experience no matter what it is. And you'll be more successful that way. The next thing we want to look at is your target audience. And so think about who it is that you want to attract into your tribe, or that you want to reach out to you. If you haven't done this as just a marketing activity in general, it's something that I highly recommend. Chances are you have multiple sorts of personas that you would like to engage with and do business with. But most of the time when I talk to companies, they'll describe the company they want to attract, right? They'll say, well, it's a multi-location, and they need some cabling, they need some managed services, they need some telecom. I'm like, okay, yeah, but who? Like, who is the person sitting behind the screen doing this? Let's talk about them, and let's think about them, and let's profile them like we see on all the criminal profiling shows, right? Let's try to get inside their head a little bit and understand who they are, what motivates them, what are they looking for, what types of Google searches might they be doing, and what sort of questions might they have. Okay, we've actually done quite a bit of this work because we work with exclusively with companies within telecom and IT. And this is just an example of one profile we've done. This is Ivan. He is the IT director or CIO. You can see a little bit about his demographics, and then some things that Ivan really likes. Automating things, accomplishing things, visibility. He wants things to run according to plan. That type of thing. We're going to come back to Ivan in just a minute, but this is just an example of how you might start to profile the people that you want to engage with. The next thing we want to think about is the pain points of your target audience. As I mentioned, like what sort of things are triggering moments or triggering events for them? What just happened? Did they just have an outage of some sort? Their phone system no longer works, like whatever it might be. What are those different triggers for that person? What sort of problems do they consistently have? What sort of questions do they have? And you can gather a lot of these things by either talking to them or, pay attention during your sales process of the types of reasons that people give you for reaching out or for, tackling these problems right now. And why do we want to uncover these things? Because when we have this information, we are much more powerful. We're much more potent in the things that we are posting to social. And most importantly, like if you understand the pain, then you are in the best position to solve it, right? Like think about anytime you go into a doctor's office and you tell them that your knee hurts or something like that. Like, you get asked a million questions about it, right? Like, they're really trying to pinpoint, like, well, is it in the morning or is it at night, or like, how about this? So really understanding like what the pain is going to really fuel a lot of the things that we do on social. So this is a really important component. And again, this doesn't just apply to social media. This is kind of, some marketing foundational elements. And so if you haven't done exercises like this in a while, I highly recommend that you kind of take a look at this. So going back to Ivan, here's a bunch of things that he is concerned about. He's worried about the reliability of his network, his job security. He wants to accomplish more with less. Of course, disaster recovery, redundancy, those types of things. He's got a lot of problems and pain points here. Here's a few more. Yeah, failure of his phone system. I mean, with all the cybersecurity breaches recently, that's got to be on their mind. So hoping that you can see that by listing this out, by doing this type of research, it suddenly starts to become a little easier to decide what types of things you might post to social media, right? If you can start to answer the questions or provide helpful resources for Ivan, targeted at these types of pain points or questions, you are much more likely to grab his attention. Okay, so now that we understand the pain, what do we do with it? Well, most of your posts should be an attempt to solve that pain. This is how you become a trusted thought leader, the go-to person for these types of things, and you're non-threatening. This is another big mistake I see made on social, is that most companies, or many companies, are just out there kind of tooting their own horn, right? Telling you how wonderful they are, or putting up their latest spiff, or promotion or something like that. And people aren't going to LinkedIn or to social or to Google to look for spiffs, right? They're going there to look for answers or to look for referrals. And how do you become that person that is getting those referrals? Well, you are constantly sharing insightful resources to help people solve their problems. So again, if there's one thing that I hope you take away from this presentation, it's a little bit of a shift in mindset here about, okay, we don't have to get on the megaphone and tell everyone how wonderful we are. All we have to do is provide, thoughtful content, and thoughtful solutions to people's pain points, and you will start to see a big difference in the response of what you're sharing. So that was the theory. Let's get into a little bit more of the tactical side so that you guys can start to put these things into place. So these are the 5 things we're going to go over. Optimizing your profile, growing your network, participating, publishing, and then prospecting. So there's a whole, I could spend an entire presentation just on optimizing your profile, but there's just a few things that I want to point out here. One is the title. So this is a snapshot of my profile. If you notice my title, I have included some very targeted, specific keywords here. Obviously, founder and CEO of my company, but I'm wanting to insert some things, some expertise into my title as well. So this is why I've chosen to put telecom, IT, cloud, and channel marketing in there. Obviously, I'm a speaker, I'm a blogger. Eventually, when I write a book, that's going to change to author, right? I want all of that stuff in my title because it not only will help people find me better who are searching for these types of things, but it's also an instant credibility booster, right? So following that same train, if you look down into the description, I know coming to the table that most people have not heard about Mojo Marketing. I mean, that is changing, thank goodness, as we grow, but everybody's heard of Comcast, Spectrum, some of the companies listed there. So again, I kind of lead with some instant credibility. And fill in from there, and then start talking about, the types of things that I do. But keep this in mind, people are very quickly going through these types of things. So, use your profile to boost credibility. A couple other things I'll point out is that make sure that your headshot is clear, it looks professional, and that it's relatively current. Someone should be able to recognize you off of your LinkedIn profile picture. There's some people that I have met that it is clear they're using a photo from about 20 years ago. So just make sure it's relatively current. And then the space above that, the photo there, is also an opportunity for branding and optimizing. I've chosen not to do that, but some people like to use that space there as that is a customizable photo. As I mentioned, there's a lot more I could say about this, but these are the main points that I wanted to point out to you guys. And to do this, recommend about 60 minutes, about once a year. It's probably good to go in and look, refresh your profile, see if there's anything else you can add to it, and re-optimize it. Okay, now let's look at the 5 minutes a day. So we're going to start with growing your network. Those people on LinkedIn who have larger networks automatically have more clout with LinkedIn and with its algorithm. Okay, so someone with a following of 20,000 is going to be seen as more influential as someone with a following of 200, right? So do you need 20,000? Probably not. But the point is, the more people that you are connected with, the more eyeballs that you're going to get on things when you post them. I've frequently find myself in debates on this topic, and I understand it, because when LinkedIn first launched, its purpose was to really just connect people with people who have done business together. And I used to be kind of like that, of I'm only going to connect with people I've actually worked with that I could actually endorse. And so I understand where that comes from, but the platform has moved on from that. It's so much more than that now. It is a way for you to grow thought leadership. And so if that's something you want to do, then you need to loosen up that restriction a little bit and connect with really anyone within your network who makes sense. What I tend to do when I get requests that aren't really of people that I don't know is I'll look at their profile and I'll just kind of quickly assess, okay, are they in the industry? Are they someone that I'm, in the future might be a good connection? And if so, then I'll connect with them. The worst that can happen if they start, bothering you is that you disconnect, right? And that's easy to do. So to me, the upside of connecting with lots of people is far outweighs the potential downside of not connecting with them. So this is what I recommend doing. And this is, break this down by about 5 minutes a day. Now, here's some very specific things that you can do to grow your network. So I got into the habit very early of connecting with everyone that I meet in person. So this means when I return from an event, the first thing I do before sending them an email is I send them a LinkedIn request. And almost everyone, if they are an active LinkedIn user, accepts that request. So sometimes I even do this at an event where, it's immediate, I just met you, I'm connecting with you. You can also sync your email, and this is something you can do maybe once a quarter. Go in and anyone that you have been emailing or conversing with will show up for you, and you'll be able to connect with those people. Over here to the right, you can see an email plugin that I use. So this is actually part of Sales Navigator, which is a plugin that LinkedIn acquired. And what it does is, as I have my email up, this plugin is showing up on the side screen. So you can see Dana and I were emailing, and so her profile was automatically pulled into my email, and I have a button there that allows me to connect with her instantly. And I can also see the people that we have in common, the connections we have in common. So I've found this to be a really useful tool as well, just to, you know, continually be growing my network. And the final way is to go within LinkedIn itself. If you go to the section called My Network, and then look at recommended for you, you will see all kinds of people with shared connections of yours. And so most likely, you might know those people, or if not, they might you know, be very open to accepting a LinkedIn request from you. Okay, so again, growing your network is part of 5 minutes a day. This is another excellent way to grow your network, LinkedIn's own search tool. And this is how you can grow your network in ways that are very targeted and aimed right at your ideal prospect. So remember, Ivan, the IT director. We're gonna go on an Ivan hunt here and try to find him. So you see here, I've highlighted a few boxes that are key in this type of thing, but there's all kinds of options available to you. So as an example, you know, the title, we might put in something like CIO, the location, whatever city you're in, and then the industry. And I actually did a search like this just to show you. So I did a search for CIOs in the greater San Diego area where I live. And you can see over here, I got 304 results. And many of these results have common connections with me. So again, these people are very likely to connect with me if I send them that request. So a great way to begin doing some prospecting. I'm going to talk more about prospecting in just a minute, but I mean, there they are, right? Like if this is who you are going after, you can find these people directly. And much more likely that LinkedIn's information is going to be updated versus purchasing a list from a list broker where that information might be 2 or 3 years old. Maybe the company, they've moved on from that company. So, you know, it's in terms of building lead lists, prospecting lists, this is an excellent way to do it. I did the same thing, the same search, but this time I applied hospital and healthcare as an industry. I know that many companies that we work with that do what you guys do have that as a specialty. And so looking here, 18, you know, very targeted results to this very specific niche. Now, if you are a company that specializes in healthcare, you've got specific collateral or specific campaigns that are aimed at these people, you now have like a very targeted list. So again, LinkedIn's search tool is incredibly powerful, not only for growing your network, but also building, you know, building prospecting lists and doing prospecting itself, which I'm going to share with you in a moment. Now, you can also grow your network through LinkedIn groups. There are tons and tons of groups on LinkedIn. I'm going to show you some examples of those in a few minutes, but you know, you can look for local IT groups, associations. Every single vertical market has associations and groups. So again, if that is a focus for you, if you are focusing on healthcare or legal or, you know, whatever it is, go and search for those groups. There might even be a local group for you. And so this is a great way you could get involved, again, share great resources to the group, become the go-to IT specialist for that group. And suddenly, you know, you don't have to work so hard at getting referrals and leads coming into you. So just another way to grow your network. So those were the first 5 minutes of growing your network. So now we're going to talk about publishing and engaging. So this is your second set of 5 minutes a day, and we're going to take a look at what that looks like. So the first way is to participate. So this is made so easy by simply commenting, liking, and sharing others' posts, right? There's a couple reasons why you want to do this engagement. The first is that anyone that you engage with, believe me that they are paying attention to who is engaging. Anyone who's active on LinkedIn, when they log in and see that they got 20 likes on their post, I guarantee they look to see who is liking the post, right? Same with comments and especially with shares. So if you are wanting to get on someone's radar and stay top of mind with someone, one of the easiest ways to do that is to engage with the post that they share, like, comment, and share. And it is so easy. As you can see, I have it highlighted there at the bottom. It's at the bottom of every single post. So this cannot be easier. It's very, very simple. The other reason why you want to do this is that it shows LinkedIn that you are a more advanced user. So LinkedIn doesn't just pay attention to the things that you are posting and the engagement that it gets. It's paying attention to what you are doing on LinkedIn. Okay, so law of reciprocity in place here. If you are giving lots of likes and comments and shares, then LinkedIn is going to assume you are a more connected individual, and therefore when you post something, it's going to show up to more people. Okay, so this is kind of like your LinkedIn karma, so to speak. You want to give some love to get some love in return. Okay, so again, this type of thing, 5 minutes a day. So how to post. Very, very simple. When you log in, at the very top of your feed, this is the desktop, you see you've got 3 images there, or 3 options there. You can publish an article directly to LinkedIn, you can add an image, a video, or you can just copy and paste some text into that space and then post it. This is what it looks like on mobile. Okay, so exactly the same. I can just click on that area at the top. I can type something in, I can add a video or a photo, okay? Tagging is a really great way to not only, demonstrate to the algorithm that you kind of know what you're doing on LinkedIn, but also to get onto that person's radar and show up to that person's audience. So I was recently attending an event and I wanted to tag my friend Karen. So it's very simple. I just put the @ sign. I start to type in her name and you can see she showed up, but a bunch of other people showed up with KAR as their first name. That's all, then I can select her and she is tagged in whatever, whatever it is that I'm posting. So something that we recommend doing, especially if you are posting photos of an event or something that you're doing, if you can tag the people in the photo, it's going to show it to them, or likely they're going to share it. It's just a great way to get more visibility onto your post. Okay, so some more publishing tips. Again, stay interesting and relevant. Think about those pain points of your target audience. Try to aim things there. What we have found is that for LinkedIn, publishing about 2 times a week your own things is about the right cadence. Of course, there are people who post a lot more, and that's okay. But this isn't, the algorithm on LinkedIn is slower than that of Facebook, and much slower than Twitter. I mean, Twitter is like, jumping into an insanely fast-moving river. But LinkedIn's a little slower, so it takes it a couple of days. Like sometimes when I post something, it's still getting views and comments 3 or 4 days later, right? And so if you can put yourself on a schedule of maybe a Monday, Thursday, or a Tuesday, Friday, or some reports are even saying that it doesn't matter, like you can post on the weekends now. A lot of people are on LinkedIn like throughout the weekend, but having just a goal of 2 times a week to post, I think is very reasonable, and keeps you relevant with the algorithm, keeps you in front of people without being like too overbearing. And as I mentioned, make sure to use those tags that I was just showing you, and then also hashtags. So this is a way, like LinkedIn is just kind of opened the gates to hashtags here in the last 6 months or so. And so this is another way that people can find your content. as an example, this morning I posted that I would be presenting this webinar and a link to the registration page, and then a couple of the hashtags I used were channel partners, MSP, and LinkedIn. So anyone who is following those hashtags is going to see that my post came up under those topics. So just another little tip to increase the visibility on your posts. Okay, now what exactly should we be posting? We've kind of talked in theory a little bit here, but here's a little bit more specific. So we know we want to talk about address pain points and questions of our audience. Anytime we can do that in a visual way, it's going to get a lot more engagement. The algorithm, the platform loves visual content. So think about that. Pictures and videos do really well. And I shouldn't have to convince you that all you have to do is scroll through your LinkedIn feed and you will see that it's almost entirely pictures and videos, right? So keep it visual. Blogs and infographics are really helpful too. Again, the more visual, the better. As far as topics go, you know, human interest items that appeal to your audience, that should be, you know, maybe about 10%. And so I'm going to give you a couple examples of those in a minute. And then the remaining 10%, you know, updates about your company. And so that's kind of your, you know, your soapbox. So again, I think most companies have this flip-flop where they spend, you know, 90% talking about themselves and 10%, you know, other things. So I would just suggest, you know, if you can flip that and make it more about being helpful, being human, being entertaining, then you're going to get a lot more success out of your social activity. Things not to post, pretty simple. I mean, most things, politics, religion, anything taboo. I'm starting to see a little bit within our industry of, you know, competition, kind of like ribbing each other a little bit. And I would recommend not doing that, just because while it might be in good fun and you guys know each other, not everybody knows the context of what's happening. And so I've found that to be a little bit in poor taste as I've seen that come up. So it's just something to be aware of. But, you know, a good rule of thumb would be, you know, would you want this, whatever you're posting here, would you want this printed on the front page of the New York Times with your name on it? And if not, then okay, maybe we should, you know, rethink what we're posting there. So finding content, you can create it yourselves. You can look to other resources. Barracuda has a lot of resources. You can look to the platform itself. So, you know, as I mentioned, LinkedIn is feeding you lots and lots of content. So, you know, sharing and posting things from there. Industry publications, there's all kinds of places where you can get this content. I would highly recommend that if you can create it yourself, that it is original content, that's generally going to get a better response than things that are borrowed, right? But in the absence of lots of time to do that, using other resources is just fine. In terms of how you share it, I already went into you know, how you post. Because we're only asking you to post like 2 times a week, then doing that manually is better than using a tool. LinkedIn appreciates it when you post directly to the tool. But if you are going to be a really high volume user and you would like a management tool, then there are several. Buffer is one, Hootsuite's one that we use, Sendable is another. There's all kinds of social media management tools out there. And what that can allow you to do is sit down maybe just once a month and plan out all of your posts at one time so that they're scheduled, they're there, and then you don't have to worry about it, okay? Again, I'd recommend if you can schedule it, if you can work it into your schedule to do this manually, but if not, there's some tools there for you. So I want to share with you a couple of my top posts just as examples to get you guys going. So this one on the left would fall into that human interest category, you could say, for our industry. Obviously, I knew that when I came across this image that it was something that would resonate really well with people that I work with, right? So you can see I posted this as a photo, and my comment here, I think it's a sign you've been in telecom too long when an image like this makes you equally excited, impressed, and oddly satisfied. And I had lots of likes and 61 comments on this image. And of course, everyone was chiming in about, you know, how this was, you know, a masterpiece and all that kind of stuff. So that one was good. Here on the right, this would be a little bit more of like a company post, but you'll notice the way I did it was a little different. So my company was recently named to the top fastest privately held companies in San Diego, fastest growing. And so, you know, in the past, or maybe, you know, other companies might post this and just say, hey, we're honored to receive this award. You can certainly do it that way. What I chose to do was share a little more of the story and, you know, open up and like show a little bit of vulnerability. And so this is kind of in line with being human, right? Like showing like, hey, owning your own business is hard, right? And there's a lot of struggles that go along with it. And, you know, I went through a struggle and I overcame it, and here's the result. And so this, you know, this post also got lots of views, lots of 43 comments and 167 likes, and it just prompted a lot more conversations. People reaching out to me saying, you know, I really appreciate that you posted that. So again, I kind of took something that could have been like more of a braggy moment and chose to spin it in a way that was really about connecting with other entrepreneurs, and that, you know, that works really well. So hope that's helpful to see a couple of examples there. So in the final 5 minutes, we're going to talk about, you know, how you use LinkedIn for prospecting and relationship building. So this is some pretty exciting stuff. So LinkedIn actually did its own research and determined that there are 3 calls to action that work really well when you are reaching out to someone on LinkedIn in the context of prospecting. So meaning they don't really know you, and you're asking them to do something and, you know, wanting to get a response. So these were the top 3 things. The first was to invite them to an event. And they mentioned that the event does not have to necessarily be an in-person event. So you could be inviting them to a webinar or some sort of virtual event. But this was the thing that got the most response from people. The second was an invite to meet with an executive. And I thought this was interesting. So not to meet with you per se, but to meet with an executive. Or, you know, if you have a salesperson, this person could be reaching out saying, hey, I'd like to set up a time for you to meet with our CEO. The example they gave was actually to meet with an executive at an event. So if you combine those two, that could be a really powerful call to action. And the third was, can you point me to the right person? And they recommended doing this to the highest level person that you can reach. And so in our example of Ivan, we could look at it and say, okay, we know we want to talk to the IT director, so I'm going to message the CEO, or maybe the CFO, or the head of the CIO, and the IT director may work for him, and just say, okay, this is what I do, can you point me to the right person? And the reason they gave for this one working well is that if you get through to that person and they do point you in the right direction, it's very likely you're going to get a response from that person because this came from higher up. So hopefully this is helpful for you. A couple of weeks ago, I attended a webinar on LinkedIn prospecting, and this was one of the things that they had said, a script that they used that worked really well. I have not tested this myself. It sounds a little British to me, but you know, the point being keeping your prospecting messages on LinkedIn short and sweet. And I can speak to this as well. I mean, I get targeted through LinkedIn pretty frequently, you know, probably 1 or 2 things a day. And when I see the big wall of text, I just don't even read it, right? But if it's something quick like this, I'm absolutely going to read it, right? So keep your prospecting emails, and this doesn't just go for LinkedIn, but just in general, get rid of the wall of text, keep it short and sweet, and you're much more likely to get a response there. Now, LinkedIn allows you to directly message anyone who you are connected to. And so this is another reason why you should be consistently growing your network, because the more people you're connected to, the more people you have at your fingertips to be able to message. One way around that is to pay LinkedIn to do InMail, which is basically emailing people who you are not connected to. And so this is the pricing for that currently. So you can see for $80 a month, you can send 20 messages, or for $130 a month, you can send 30 messages. Now, there's other things you can do with this stuff, but to me, that's the biggest value, is being able to send messages to people. Now, LinkedIn doesn't want you to know that there are actually some loopholes to this. So I'm going to share these loopholes with you next. So this is a search that I did for IT directors in San Diego. This is interesting because you can see for Mark Livingstone, I do have the ability to send him mail, but for Eli, I don't. You know, I have the option to connect. And the reason why is that I have common groups with Mark. So we mentioned groups earlier. The default setting for joining a group is that you can message people within that group. You can email those people. So this is another excellent reason to get involved with and join groups. That said, the person can certainly go in and change the setting and say, I don't want people in the group to be able to message me. But the default is that if you share a group, you can send messages to other members in that group. Okay, so this is a little loophole of having to pay to email someone. So what you can do if you're really wanting to connect with someone and they haven't accepted your connection request, is to look at the groups that they are a part of and go join a few of the groups, and now you should be able to email them. Okay, so again, just some tips there for prospecting, and this is about your 5 minutes a day activity as well. So in review of the formula here is 5 minutes a day spent growing your network, 5 minutes a day spent publishing and or engaging, and then 5 minutes a day spent prospecting. And if you are brand new to this, then maybe this isn't a daily activity. Maybe this is a twice a week for 15 minutes. Whatever you can do to be consistent is going to be key. But I think we all have 15 minutes, whether it's standing in a line or getting stuck in traffic or whatever that might look like. I think we all have these 15 minutes that we can carve out, and especially for such a powerful tool that really, if you are working well, can help guarantee that you are hitting your sales numbers, growing your thought leadership and your influence. And finally, I'll just leave you with some principles again that start off, if you're brand new to this, start off by observing, then start participating by liking, commenting, sharing posts, and then move that up to engagement. Keep in mind the law of reciprocity. So the more that you are giving into the community and to your network, the more that will return to you. And finally, just remembering consistency and patience, and that you're not likely to see something happen overnight, right? You have to build up trust with your network as well as the platform itself. But those who do are seeing some really great things come out of it. So with that, I will turn it back over to Amber if there's any questions coming out. The last thing I will mention is that if any of you are looking for help with this, I'm happy to send you these slides. I'm happy to discuss, this with you. So feel free to reach out to me if any questions arise out of this presentation or marketing in general. So great. Any questions that have come up?